Welcome back to another episode of the Building HVAC Science podcast. I'm trying to help HVAC and building performance professionals better understand their fields and integrate their thinking to do better work. Not just the theories, not just the tools, but how buildings and HVAC systems actually work together in the real world. And we do this by bringing people on the podcast who understand this and are working on a piece element of this. I'll read a couple quotes from the episode first, just to give you an idea. Heat pumps can't meet their promise if they're not properly maintained. Vacuuming the filter matters, but it's not the same thing as deep cleaning the system. Electrification only works as well as intended when the equipment keeps working as well as intended. This episode, I get a chance to speak with Gabriel Erde-Cohen, founder of We Clean Heat Pumps, talking about an often overlooked aspect of heat pumps, of building management, of maintenance, of electrification. What happens after installation? Gabriel, over the last 8 years, has grown his Vermont-based business from cleaning mini splits for a family company into a specialized maintenance company operating across New England and now in various markets around the country. He has a real simple core point. Heat pumps cannot deliver on their promise of efficiency, comfort, durability, and healthier indoor air if they're not properly cleaned and maintained. This ties right into a recent episode where I spoke with Dan Stradford about air duct cleaning and talking about how equipment only functions the way it was designed because design conditions are usually not the same as actual use conditions where things need to be maintained. Gabe explains the difference between basic homeowner filter care and true deep cleaning. His team removes covers, protects the home, does low pressure washing, uses treatments and materials, cleans everything. He's very careful to distinguish maintenance from repair, noting his company refers service issues, actual equipment service issues, back to the installer partners rather than competing with them. So this is a symbiotic system where he can provide leads to installers and installers can use his skills so that the customer overall is satisfied with the long-term aspects of purchasing a system. He services ducted and ductless systems, PTACs, CRVs, HRVs, outdoor units, even heat pump water heaters, and talks about the importance of not simply killing biological material, but actually removing it from the building. It's a really good episode. Opened my eyes to it. I'll be honest, when I first heard the name We Clean Heat Pumps, I'm like, what could this company be doing and why? My eyes are open. This is something for you to listen to. And within this same sentiment, I just want to give another quick note to the 2026 U.S. Heat Pump Summit that's coming up September 15th and 16th at the DCU Center in Worcester, Mass. That's where I actually met Gabriel last November at the Heat Pump Summit, the 2025. The 2026 will be in September this year. It may be a little far away, you listening to this episode today, but you need to plan to attend. So if you're planning to attend, I really think you should get on it. Search for U.S. Heat Pump Summit 2026. Look at the real contractors, the real field experience, the demos, the exhibitors, and the practical conversations you can engage in and see if this belongs on your travel calendar. Let's get into this episode with Gabriel talking about the dirty little secret, why heat pumps need deep cleaning. We talk about heat pumps a lot lately, but who's paying attention to the condition that they're in after they're installed? I think my next guest is. His name is Gabriel Erde-Cohen, and he runs, and I think he started a company called We Clean Heat Pumps. Gabriel, good morning. How are you?
I'm well, Bill. Thanks so much for having me.
What a great name for a business. How did you end up doing this? So where'd the concept come from? What's your background?
The background for the name is that I didn't want to have to explain it. And of course, that doesn't work at all. My background is actually in agriculture. For, I guess, the last 8 years, I'm a newcomer to the industry, just rolling around trying to make sure that all of this equipment that's put out there gets maintained. But the background is that I was farming, and my wife and father-in-law had a small solar and mini split install mom and, I guess, father-daughter operation. And in, 2015, 2016, they asked if I'd be willing to swing around and do the annual cleaning on all the mini splits that they installed the previous year. They knew that they all required maintenance, and they were too busy with new installs and service to get back to do the cleaning. Year 1, year 2, I said, no, thank you. That's not really my wheelhouse. But year 3, I did it as a side gig. So I was going around cleaning these mini splits First of all, it's a pretty sweet gig. We get to meet a lot of great people, and I live in southern Vermont. It's a beautiful drive as you're going from place to place. But I could also see the value of what I was doing immediately. There's a ton of material buildup in all of the units that I was encountering. And I started thinking to myself, I wonder if other installers are having the same issue. If they're putting in the equipment, but they're too busy with new installs and service to get back to it. There's other good reasons for them to not be able to get back to it. A lot of them don't want to. It's low ticket value. It's a dirty job. It's below their pay grade. And really, it makes sense for them to look for someone to offload it to. And so I started reaching out to other installers just in my area. And by the end of 2018, I had the entire Green Mountain Power lease program under our care. It was a dozen installers throughout the state who were contractually obligated through the Green Mountain Power lease program to provide the annual cleanings. And not a single one was able to or interested in doing those cleanings. I started thinking to myself, I bet there's something to this. And at the end of 2018, I brought on 2 business partners and we started looking further afield. And now, 8 years later, we operate in every corner of New England, every abutting county in New York, from the capital region down to New York City and Long Island, New Jersey, Charleston, South Carolina, Houston, Denver, LA, and San Francisco. And we've created a structure that allows us to expand to any corner of the market where people have the need. And so far, it seems like it's fairly universal. There's a lot of really good reasons, as you can imagine, why contractors are unwilling or uninterested in going back to do the cleaning. And so there's no one's toes that we're stepping on. We just partner with installers to make sure that their equipment is properly maintained. A lot of maintenance directors are dying to find somebody to do this work. Doing it themselves doesn't really make sense. Again, it's just outside of their comfort zone and their wheelhouse to do the technical cleaning. It's often a lot that needs to get done. It needs to get done once a year. And then residential customers as well. Everything from just a single, one interior, one exterior household, all the way up to municipalities, universities, schools, hospitals, multifamilies.
Wow. I recently interviewed someone who's a member of the National Air Duct Cleaning Association. So they've actually formed an association. Is there a heat pump cleaning association yet?
There isn't. We're looking into it. It's interesting that you mentioned duct cleaning because I think that creating an association so that there isn't a race to the bottom is so important. And one of the things I realized in 2018 was this need is very pressing. There's a promise that's being made by heat pumps, by electrification. And if this equipment's not properly maintained, it's not going to meet the promise. And it's very easy for someone to get taken for a ride. Sometimes it's not through the fault of the contractor. They just don't know how to do it properly. There's a lot of misunderstanding about how deep of a cleaning is necessary. A lot of times we'll come across folks who will say, hey, who's doing the cleaning on your heat pumps? And they say, oh yeah, there's someone who's doing it. And they say, well, what are they doing? They come, they vacuum the filters. Sometimes they're using foam. And a lot of times what happens is material is compacted deeper into the unit. People are paying for an insufficient cleaning that actually is making things worse, not better. And so creating a trade association that keeps high standards not only prevents a race to the bottom, but actually meets the promise. Duct cleaning, I think, has had that challenge. And we have not yet had it because, frankly, the education has not happened and people are not searching for heat pump cleaning yet. So we're trying to stay ahead of the curve and make sure that people are well educated, and that's everyone throughout the industry, customers included, and that the education includes what should be done, what should not be done, how often it should be done. And we want to make sure that there's appropriate accountability.
Question for you. What actually do you clean when you clean a heat pump?
Regular deep cleaning of a heat pump starts with turning the power off on the equipment after doing a test to make sure that the equipment is running properly. There's no error codes. There's nothing broken. There's no noises, any observations around anything that indicates that there's something wrong requiring a service visit. Our current offering does not include repair. We just do maintenance. And that's part of not stepping on our installer partners' toes. So if we observe anything during the course of the service inspection, that gets referred to either our installer partner who we're currently working with, the installer if the customer is our only point of contact, or we'll find someone in our network to do the repair if needed. Once the power is off, we remove the plastic cover on the interior head. And again, surface inspection each step of the way. Wrap the interior head in a plastic bib kit that goes down into a bucket. And then we're using a low pressure washer, specially calibrated so that it is strong enough to push the water and soap through the coils out to the other side, but not so strong that it's bending the coils. And then an alkaline soap that's appropriate for using inside the home and doesn't damage the coating on the coils. At that point, we're just making sure that everything is taped off and safe so that there's no water damage to the home or to any of the electronics in the equipment. And then we're pressure washing the coil. All of that material is going down to the pan, out the condensate line, and being sucked out by a wet dry vac on the other side to make sure it's appropriately removed. And then we are doing the same thing, pressure wash on the fan, where a ton of biological buildup is happening. And all of that goes down into the bucket and out of the building. And we're not mold remediation experts. I can't speak specifically on what we're removing, but the biological material that is getting removed needs to get out of the building. Unfortunately, what we've learned is that dead mold is sometimes worse for people than live mold. And so killing things using ozone, using anything that kills but then leaves biological activity inside of the unit is a little dangerous. And then what we don't use is foam that you leave behind, because the foam actually just compacts the material deeper into the unit, but doesn't remove it. Even though there is a little bit of a glacial action getting some of the material off, what we find is that it actually compacts the material deeper. Now, there are some new enzyme-based foam products on the market that we're experimenting with, so I don't want to throw the entire idea out the window, but so far, pressure washer, alkaline soap. I'm sorry, I should add that we use an enzyme spray as a finishing touch, whereas it can't be the only thing you use, but if you use an enzyme spray as a finishing touch, it'll remove the biological activity that creates that wet sock smell that sometimes people complain about with mini splits. All the material goes in a bucket, goes out of the building, dry the whole thing off, do what we call a courtesy cleaning on the plastic cover, because otherwise we're not going to leave the place with a dusty cover, exactly, and then put the whole thing back together and then do a second surface inspection to make sure that the unit is running properly before we could leave. And then a side element, but really important, is a little bit of education to the customer. What we did and why we did it, any support they need with their remote, with their settings, any questions that we can answer, in any way that we can liaison between them and our installer partners. One of the benefits that we provide our installer partners is finding out if the customer or anybody in their community or family is interested in adding any new zones. Since we're not installers and we never will be, all of that work goes back to our installer partners. And we were speaking a little earlier about that unfortunate race to the bottom. Sometimes it's the $99 maintenance plan, which is really just a loss leader for an installer that they're taking on because it gives them the chance to go in and do a sales visit. And what we'll try to do with our installer partners is make sure that their customers are actually getting the wholesome service that we provide, while also finding out if there's any new work that needs to be done, installs or repairs, that we can send to our installer partners. So we are able to kill two birds with one stone there.
So is it ducted and ductless mini splits?
It is ducted, ductless mini splits, PTAC units, HRV, ERV systems.
And ducted?
Correct. Now, we don't do the ducts.
No. Just the coils.
Correct. If it's got a coil and a fan, we can clean it. However, we try to stick with the electrification side.
Sure.
Yeah.
And outdoor units too?
Correct. Exactly the same process. The water just runs on the ground instead of into a bib kit. So it's a little bit less prep work.
Got it. When going back to your original setting the table here, you talked about southern Vermont, every corner of New England, adjacent counties, New York, New Jersey, South Carolina, Denver, LA, San Francisco. You don't run around to San Francisco from Vermont, do you, every day?
No.
So what's going on there?
When we first started, I was doing the cleanings for my wife and father-in-law. They're all local, obviously. It's a local operation. And then when I first started working with Green Mountain Power on their lease program, the next batch that we got was 3.5 hours north. And so I'm waking up at 5 a.m, taking off and going and doing a full day of work, and then coming home at night because I like kissing my kids goodnight before they go to bed. So I didn't want to stay over. So I was doing that, and we figured out pretty quickly how to hire, train, and have an accountability process with a lot of opportunity for somebody to not have somebody breathing down their neck. So we hired up north. And then the third batch of customers I got were actually on Martha's Vineyard, which is 4 hours away plus a ferry ride. That was through a family friend who lives there and saw the need and asked if I'd be willing to just give him some cards and see if he could drum up some business. And so starting in 2018, we were already working remotely. By 2020, when everyone started working remotely and home service businesses took a real hit, we were able to take some time and really just thresh out our process. So at this point, to be fully transparent, we have technicians in each of those places you mentioned, but we have not even scratched the surface of the need or demand for annual cleanings of equipment. There's just so much work to do out there. So we're in each of those places geographically, but we will be a much larger organization as we continue to educate and make sure that that need is met in each of those places.
So, how does a customer recognize the need and then even know that you exist? Sorry, you're new. So, 8 years old is still new.
Exactly. So, yeah, this industry is full of experts. I'm happy to say I'm not an expert, I'm a learner. We're doing a much better job now than we were doing 8 years ago. And I recognize that we're new to the industry and that we've noticed something that a need that needs to be filled. And I think that we're doing it the right way. So we're trying to make sure that it's wholesome. We're trying to make sure the customer is getting a fair price. Our technicians are paid above living wage. They live in the communities that they serve and are proud to be able to do the work that they're doing in those communities. So, right, nobody's searching, nobody's Googling heat pump cleaner near me. We do a lot of trade shows and events. We do a lot of direct mailers and getting on the radio. We do a lot of speaking engagements and a lot of education in all the places that we serve. We directly partner with installers, and the installer can either include our first year cleaning as a line item at the point of install, which is best case scenario. That first year cleaning happens 1 year out, and it gives a customer a chance to see the value of what we do and understand what they're paying for from that point on. And just to speak briefly on the annual cleaning part of it, when we first started, the annual cleaning was more or less an observation and what I thought the customer could stomach in terms of price. I wanted to make sure that we were getting out there, putting eyes on the unit, and doing the deep cleaning regularly. But I was not 100% sure that once a year was the right amount. And after 8 years, I would say 99% of the time, it is the right amount. When we get out and we do a cleaning, what we don't want to find is a very gross, for lack of a better term, piece of equipment that's covered in mold and covered in bacterial growth, dust, and dander and debris. And that is what we find if we leave it for too long. On the other hand, if we get to a unit and it doesn't need deep cleaning 1 year out, then that goes in the notes. The customer's alerted. We don't do the cleaning at that point, and we'll adjust that customer's regularity so that it's less frequent. We have anywhere from every 6 weeks for a dog kennel in Brooklyn all the way to once every 3 years for a customer that has a uniquely clean home, has air filtration, etc. What we're working on now is a partnership with a monitoring device technology company so that when the monitoring device goes on at either the point of install or the point of the first cleaning, the monitoring device itself will ping us for maintenance. That way we can have the exact data, not only of how much the efficiency has decreased since point of install or last cleaning, and we can set those parameters to make sure that the pings for maintenance at the exact right time for the customer. We also can get the specific data of the improvement in efficiency. Because right now, it's common sense. We can see with our own eyes how much material is coming off, but we don't have enough data to be able to share with utilities and programs that can do incentives. And so that's on the horizon. Again, killing two birds with one stone, where it's a tremendous benefit to the customer to have that monitoring, not only for maintenance, but it also is monitoring for refrigerant leaks, electrical issues, any issues that might emerge. But it also will ping us for the specific moment when the unit needs maintenance rather than just a generalized annual cleaning. But again, after 8 years of observation, I would say once a year and 8 years of before and after photos of each and every cleaning, I can say with a good amount of certainty that once a year is a good guess for most people.
You mentioned the efficiency change. Again, going back to this recent conversation with the guy from Duct Cleaning World, they'd actually done a test with fan blower blades, and they actually took measurements of energy and static pressure changes with the buildup of actually very small amounts of material.
Exactly.
Is anyone from any part of your world, or maybe somewhere in a government lab in the Department of Energy, some of those folks do listen to this call. They're always looking for ways to express their talents. Anything like that going on?
So we're partnering right now with some of that data gathering, with a data gathering pilot that will do just that. We've been nose to the grindstone for all this time. I'm not an engineer, so I'm a humble heat pump cleaner. I've been out doing the work. I have all the before and after photos, but it has become clear to me that having the numbers really makes a difference. So we're working on a pilot actually currently. I'm also happy if anybody who's listening wants to reach out. We're happy to participate in pilots all over the country to gather that data.
What do you think people are doing today that they believe is maintenance, but really isn't from your perspective?
Vacuuming the filter. So what a lot of folks think a cleaning is you take the plastic case cover off the filter, take the filter out and either vacuum or wash it, dry it off and put it back in. And that is very important from on the homeowner side. So any homeowner, property manager, maintenance director who's doing that is doing the right thing. It should be done once every several weeks to once a month. We recommend essentially, if you're vacuuming your house, just include it in your vacuuming, your floor, pop the thing up, vacuum the filter, put it back in. If that's not doing it through observation, you can go ahead and wash it. But what is happening is that there's a ton of material that's bypassing that filter and hitting the coil. And what we've learned is that there's a biofilm that surrounds biological life. That's mold, spores, and bacteria and other biological activity. The biofilm itself is sticky and it's insulative. So when that encounters the coil, not only is it creating an insulative layer on the coil that reduces efficiency, but it's also sticky and then grabbing other material. So this coil that is meant to be slick, that material just passes right through, goes down the pan, and the condensation is supposed to wash it out of the building, is just not happening where the rubber meets the road. So using an enzyme, warm water, alkaline soap, fairly simple, but important to wash through the coil and wash the fan and get all that material down the pan, down the condensate line and out the building or into the bucket and out of the building is the job that needs to be done by a professional. And there are certainly, I'm in Vermont, there's a ton of people who ask if they can do it themselves. And it's enough of a technical cleaning that I don't recommend it. I don't even recommend it for maintenance folk at a multifamily necessarily. I think that it's one of those times where it makes sense for an installer or a maintenance person or a homeowner to offload it to somebody who just does that one thing and does it well. It's a little bit of the reason why no one was doing it before we came around.
You did mention everything goes down the condensate line when you're working with the indoor unit. Do you also clean condensate lines?
So the warm water, enzyme, spray, and soap that goes down the condensate line, along with the action of the vacuum pulling it through, in our observation, is sufficient.
So you do use an active vacuum too?
Correct.
That is at least one mode of cleaning. Very good.
Exactly, yeah. There are enough times where what we developed was a disassembly that is enough so that we can clean it while it's still on the wall, but not disassembling it entirely and taking it out of the building. I'm talking about the interior head, of course. So there are places where we've made the judicious choice to not make it so that our techs are in danger of causing damage unnecessarily. And so 8 years of observation gives us that sense that using a brush on that condensate line is unnecessary after using the vacuum, warm water, soap, and enzyme spray.
Maybe this is a curveball. How about heat pump water heater coils?
Sure, we do them. And we also do the water heater part itself. It's not our bread and butter, but when we first started looking at them, it appeared to us that they didn't need a regular cleaning. We're still keeping our eye on it. And when they do, we'll do the cleaning. But I think it's more of a when needed situation so far. I don't want to speak outside of my expertise. So as far as I can tell, it's not as regular cleaning as a mini split or some of the stuff that's cycling air inside the home the same way.
A lot of equipment comes with, beyond the installation, a manual. It comes with a user manual or homeowner manual. Is cleaning in this kind of maintenance talked about in those type of manuals? Without being specific, but just in general, is it?
It is implied in a general sense that the equipment requires maintenance and that you should call a professional. And what we found in the beginning was that manufacturers want us to do it, but didn't want to engage too much in telling us how to do it. For reasons that make sense to me. We now have a couple manufacturer partnerships in which we're teamed up. And my ultimate goal is for all the manufacturers, warranty companies, industry-wide, to take the reins here and make sure that all of the equipment that is put out there is being properly maintained. At this point, if you choose not to get your oil changed in your car, you choose not to go to the dentist, it's a willful decision. You're deciding not to do the required maintenance. I want something like that within our industry.
If you could change something about the way the industry handles heat pump installations today, what would that be?
I want to stay in my lane here because I'm not an installer and I'm also not an industry expert beyond maintenance. One other thing, though, is that we have far more than 10,000 units under our care at this point. So we've seen a lot of installs. And with proper commissioning through a commissioning device that requires that the unit be properly installed, proper monitoring to make sure that there's no refrigerant leaks, electric issues, or any other issues that are pinging for a repair. And then with regular maintenance, either annualized or through monitoring, pinging for a technician to come, put their eyes on the unit, do a surface inspection, and properly deep clean the unit. I think that we're going to have this equipment last a lot longer, because we're seeing units that are 7, 9 years old that are on their deathbed every day. And I think that we're also, the industry, when I first started seeing biological material build up, and again, I'm not a mold remediation expert, I did a cleaning on a Tuesday, and we got a call on a Wednesday that a mold remediation expert had come and done a swab and had found that there was still mold on a cleaning that I had just done. And so I asked if I could talk to him. I gave him a call and I said, hey, what can we do better? And he said, I've done thousands of swabs. I've never had anybody ask, what can I do better? People just call and argue with me. So he was excited to talk to me. He's in Southern Massachusetts. He's the guy that is the expert witness in a class action lawsuit. He really knows his stuff. He's a scientist, hard science. And he was the one who gave us a lot of insight into what we could do better, which luckily was not very different than what we were doing at the time. And one of the things that he told me back then was that he thinks that at some point, mini splits are going to be the largest class action lawsuit in history because of what they're doing to indoor air quality. And I said to him at that time, what if we build this business large enough that we can stop that from happening? What if we educate the industry widely to let everyone know of the importance of deep cleaning, that we're removing all this biological material and getting it out of the building? So in terms of the longevity of the equipment, it's a no-brainer. I have before and after photos from units that are 3 years old, 5 years old, 7 years old, 9 years old that are in really rough shape. They're working harder and they're just breaking early. But from the indoor air quality perspective, I think that's really the most important part of what we do, making sure that people's homes and families are staying healthy and that this thing is meeting its promise, which it has the opportunity to do. It's great technology. It just needs a regular cleaning, and people aren't talking about it. And then lastly, from an efficiency perspective, the Department of Energy, at one point, I can't find the white paper, I found it on the DOE website years ago, mentions a 10 to 30% improvement in efficiency post-cleaning. I'd love anybody who's listening who has that white paper or good data on what cleaning does for efficiency to send it to us so that we can share it. But in our earliest trials of data gathering over the last, to be honest, several months, we found anywhere from 5% improvement in efficiency on a unit that we only cleaned because we were doing the data gathering pilot. Otherwise, we would have told the customer, hey, this unit is pristine. It's clean enough to eat off of, and walked away. We did the cleaning anyway. 5% improvement in efficiency is not nothing. That's on a unit that we never would have cleaned, all the way up to a over 130% improvement in efficiency on a unit that we had cleaned 1 year before at a busy bar in Brooklyn. That's 2 points of data. It's not nearly enough. So anywhere between 5% and 130% improvement in efficiency is what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's all going to be situational.
100%. But that matters for climate. It matters for people's pocketbooks. That amount of improvement in efficiency is substantial. And so I want to make sure that, again, the equipment's meeting its promise, electrification of heating and cooling is meeting its promise, and that it's making people healthy, not sick.
As we close out here in the conversation, got one more question, then I'll ask you for your closing thoughts. My last question here is, without giving away your secret sauce, can you describe what you think makes your approach different?
We do one thing, and we do it really well. So we're not spreading ourselves thin. When we started expanding organically, we realized that we were in the unique position of not stepping on anyone's toes. So we can go to an installer and say, hey, are you doing the annual cleaning on your equipment? The answer is either yes or no. If the answer is no, it's a disservice to their customers, it's a disservice to the industry, and there's money on the table, to be honest. If they're saying yes, they are doing the cleanings, my next question is, yeah, but it sucks, right? And the answer is almost universally yes. So installers are keeping cleanings because they don't want to lose techs during slow times, which they're going to lose that tech anyway because the tech is being sicked on a deep cleaning instead of an install or repair. And they're trying to do everything. And instead, if they offload the cleanings to us and we take over their maintenance program, then we get to go in, we do the deep cleaning, we offer great customer service, skilled technicians. They're hired first and foremost for their front-facing customer service skill, and then we train them specifically on the technical skill. Then we're asking their customers if they thought about adding any zones, or if their friends or family have thought about adding any zones, and all of that goes back to the installer along with any repairs that we discover. We're building a book of business for our installer partners so that they have their own customers returning year after year. And then there's also a small residual that we send back to our installer partners. So we get to provide benefit there. From a residential maintenance director, property manager perspective, they're dying to find somebody who's willing to do what we do, and they just have not been able to find it. Beyond that, we stay current and make sure that we're doing the best job. We stay current on the technology, make sure that we're providing the new technology and technology partnerships that can keep the whole industry heading in the right direction. Like I said, we hire all of our technicians are W-2 employees under our direct supervision in terms of accountability and support. We hire them out of the customer service field and then train them on the technical skill rather than having to search for someone with years of technical experience and crossing our fingers and hoping that they're good with customers. And then in 2024, we started franchising. And the benefit there is that a franchisee is an owner-operator in their own community. They're able to serve their neighbors, friends, and family. And it helps us expand to meet every corner of the market to make sure that this is being done everywhere. There's so much to the secret sauce, but I can leave it at that.
Okay. It's probably best you do.
Yeah.
Protect. So really want to thank you for coming on the podcast. I saw you at the Heat Pump Summit in Worcester, Mass. last year. You were really busy at your booth. Maybe made eye contact, but never got a chance to talk with you. So I'm really glad we got to finally meet and have this conversation. And most importantly, for you to share it with our listeners. That's excellent.
Bill, I really appreciate the opportunity to spread the word and let people know about the importance of deep cleaning and about our company. And I also saw you at the Heat Pump Summit. I look forward to seeing you this upcoming year, and hopefully we can stop and have a coffee.
Absolutely.
All right, Bill. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Gabriel. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Building HVAC Science podcast. This podcast is a production of TruTech Tools Limited. Full disclosure, I'm a co-owner of TruTech. The opinions expressed in the show are those of my guest and myself, depending who's speaking, of course. If you're looking for tools or test instruments mentioned in the podcast, and we do carry mini-split cleaning tools, you can find many of them at TruTechTools.com, TruTechTools.com. And the listener discount code is HVACBS. I want to thank you for listening to and supporting the show. Subscribing helps you stay current and helps us reach more people who care about doing work the right way. We appreciate you being part of the Building HVAC Science community. Until next time, take care.